There's a quiet kind of pain that almost everyone experiences at some point in life, but few people talk about it openly. It's the pain of outgrowing someone you still care about, not because they hurt you, not because you stopped loving them, but simply because your heart, your awareness, your maturity moved to a place where the connection can no longer meet you. It's a subtle grief, almost invisible from the outside, but deeply felt on the inside. And today I want to explore this with you slowly and gently, the way a therapist would, but also through the lens of mindfulness and Buddhist psychology. Because this experience is not a failure. It's a natural part of human growth. Let's take our time with it. The strange thing about outgrowing someone is that usually nothing obvious happens. There's no big breakup scene, no final argument, no dramatic betrayal. If anything, life on the surface looks the same. You still see them, you still talk, you still laugh at certain things. You still remember how important they once were to you. But underneath, something is shifting in quiet ways. A sentence that wouldn't have bothered you before now lands differently. A pattern you once tolerated now feels heavy. A kind of mismatch appears, not in what you do together, but in where your inner worlds are heading. Human beings like to believe that relationships grow in straight lines, that if we love each other, we'll naturally evolve together, that if we put in enough time, effort, and loyalty, somehow the bond will always remain aligned. But the reality is softer and harder at the same time. Growth is deeply personal. It doesn't consult the group. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait until everyone is ready. One day, something in you wakes up. You begin to question behaviors you once accepted. You notice the way your body reacts around certain people. You become more aware of your own patterns, your own wounds, your own needs. You start walking a path that feels more honest, more awake, more intentional. And as you move along that path, you might look beside you and realize someone you love is not walking with you. They're still standing where you used to be, still thinking how you used to think, still coping how you used to cope, still ignoring what you now find impossible to ignore. And the distance between you isn't about physical space, it's about depth. At first, you might try to pretend it's not there. You tell yourself you're imagining it. You tell yourself you're being judgmental. You tell yourself, they haven't changed. Maybe I'm the one who's being too serious now. So you push your awareness away. You laugh at jokes that don't feel funny anymore. You stay silent when something feels off. You nod along even when your heart quietly shakes its head. And each time you do that, a small fracture appears inside you, a tiny split between who you really are now and who you're pretending to be to keep the connection alive. Over time, that inner split becomes harder to ignore. You notice that after spending time with this person, you feel drained instead of nourished. Over time, that inner split becomes harder to ignore. You notice that after spending time with this person, you feel drained instead of nourished. You feel a subtle loneliness, even while sitting right next to them. You catch yourself thinking, I can't talk about the things that really matter to me with them. Or, if I show them who I am now, I'm not sure they'll understand. It's not that they're bad. It's that the space you share together was built around an older version of you, and you simply don't live there anymore. In therapy, this is often described as a shift in emotional alignment. The relationship hasn't necessarily done something wrong, it just hasn't evolved at the same rhythm as you. In Buddhist psychology, the same thing is seen through the lens of impermanence. Everything is changing all the time, including you, including them, including the invisible us, in between. When we try to hold on to a version of a relationship that no longer reflects reality, we suffer. Not because anyone is evil, but because we are clinging to what once was, instead of gently acknowledging what is. You might notice this especially in conversation. Maybe you've started practicing more self-awareness. You check in with your emotions, you think about triggers, you reflect on your reactions. You're learning to take responsibility for your inner world instead of blaming everyone around you. And then you talk to this person, and every conversation still circles around blame, gossip, judgment, or avoidance. You want to talk about healing, and they want to talk about what's wrong with everyone else. You want to examine your own patterns, and they want to defend theirs. You want to be honest about your pain, and they want to skip over anything uncomfortable. There's nothing inherently wrong with them being where they are, but your nervous system feels the gap. What used to feel like connection now feels more like performance, like you have to play the role of your old self just to keep things smooth. And the more you do that, the more your body sends you signals. A tight chest, a subtle anxiety, a slight heaviness as you're getting ready to meet them. Sometimes the realization comes in a single moment. Maybe they say something casually dismissive when you share a vulnerable piece of your story. Maybe they laugh at someone's pain in a way that no longer feels okay to you. Maybe they encourage a behavior you're actively trying to heal from. Maybe in a moment when you needed gentle attention, they simply weren't there, not because they couldn't be, but because they never thought deeply about how their presence affects others. And in that moment, your heart understands something your mind has been avoiding. I am not seen here in the way I need to be seen anymore. That understanding can be incredibly painful because it doesn't erase your care for them. You can love someone deeply and still acknowledge that the dynamic between you has become unhealthy for who you are now. Love doesn't disappear just because growth has happened. That's what makes this kind of grief so complex. It's not clean-cut. It doesn't give you a clear villain to blame. It doesn't come with a satisfying conclusion. Instead, it asks you to hold two truths at once. I still care for you, and I can no longer stay in this the way I used to. In many spiritual traditions, including Buddhism, there is an important teaching. Love without wisdom turns into attachment, and wisdom without love turns into coldness. The art of outgrowing someone while staying human is finding the middle way between those two extremes. On one side is the pull of attachment. I can't let go. I owe them my loyalty. I have to stay, even if it costs me my peace. On the other side is the temptation to shut down. I'll cut them off completely. I'll harden my heart so I don't feel anything. Neither extreme truly honors your growth. What wisdom invites you to do instead is to stay soft but honest. To say gently and quietly inside yourself, I no longer want to abandon myself to maintain this connection. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop sacrificing your emotional health as proof of that care. It means you stop forcing conversations that never change. It means you stop asking for understanding in places where it's never really been available. It means you stop playing the hero in someone else's story while ignoring that your own story is asking for a new chapter. You might ask, but if I step back, isn't that betrayal? It's a natural question, especially if you've always been the strong one, the reliable one, the person everyone can count on. You're used to staying even when things hurt. You're used to explaining, filling in gaps, taking emotional responsibility for both sides. You may have spent years being the one who kept the peace in your family, who smoothed over conflicts, who stayed quiet so others could stay comfortable. So when your heart whispers, I don't think I can keep doing this, there's a part of you that immediately responds, you're selfish. You're abandoning them. But here's where a therapist's voice and a Buddhist teacher's voice say the same thing in different words. You are allowed to choose relationships that do not harm your inner world. In therapy, this is called setting boundaries. In Buddhism, it's called protecting your mind. The Buddha often emphasized the importance of guarding the mind, the same way you would guard a house from intruders. That doesn't mean you hate the people outside. It just means you don't let everyone walk through your space with muddy shoes. Outgrowing someone you still care about doesn't mean slamming the door on them. It might mean quietly moving them from the center of your life to the outer edges. It might mean you don't share your deepest secrets with them anymore. It might mean you stop expecting emotional presence from them. It might mean you reduce how often you see them. It might even, in some cases, mean you step away entirely. But in every version, the energy behind your decision matters. If you do it with anger or superiority, your heart will stay agitated. If you do it with clarity and compassion, for you and for me, this is healthier. Your heart will slowly settle. It can help to name the kind of grief you're going through. You're not just losing a person. You're losing a version of yourself, a version of them, and a version of the relationship that only existed when both of you were different. You're saying goodbye to the us that fit perfectly at one time in your life. Grief that isn't named often shows up as irritation, numbness, or sudden anger. But when you can say softly to yourself, I am grieving what we were, something relaxes. The pain finally has a place to sit. In Buddhist terms, you're practicing non-resistance. You're not fighting the fact that change has happened. You're not trying to drag this person into a level of growth they're not ready for. You're not pretending that things are fine. You're simply letting the truth be the truth, and then choosing your actions from a place of awareness. This is one of the deepest forms of spiritual maturity, letting reality be as it is, instead of how you wish it would be, and still keeping your heart gentle. It's also important to remember that your growth doesn't make you better than anyone. It just makes you responsible for what you now know. You're not above the people you've outgrown. You're just standing in a different place on the road. If you look back at your own past, you'll probably see versions of yourself that someone else had already outgrown long before you ever understood why. You might have been the one who wasn't ready then. You might have been the one clinging or resisting change or not seeing the impact you had on others. And yet, you still deserve compassion in that stage. So do the people you're outgrowing now. But compassion doesn't mean you have to stand still. One of the kindest things you can do for your future is to stop forcing yourself into spaces that your soul has clearly outgrown. Every time you ignore that inner knowing, that tightness in your chest, that weight in your stomach, that tired feeling in your bones after being with someone, you delay your own alignment. You delay meeting the people who can truly walk with you at the level you're at now. You delay creating the kinds of connections that don't require you to dim your awareness or apologize for your depth. So if you're in a season where you feel this quiet pain of still caring but not being able to stay the same, I want you to know you are not alone. So many people are moving through this exact experience right now. They are leaving friendships that no longer feel kind. They are stepping away from partners who refuse to grow. They are softening their roles in families where they've always been the rescuer. They're learning to stop calling it loyalty when it's actually self-abandonment. You don't have to make any drastic decisions today. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know exactly what the next step looks like. You're allowed to move slowly. You're allowed to experiment with a little more distance and see how your body feels. You're allowed to stay kind but say no more often. You're allowed to love someone and also admit, this version of us doesn't feel right anymore. Maybe the most healing perspective to carry is this: outgrowing someone is not a rejection of them. It's an acceptance of you. You are simply honoring what your heart has learned. You are respecting the work you've done to become more conscious. You are protecting the tenderness you fought hard to reclaim. You are choosing not to go backwards into behaviors and dynamics that you know are harmful to you. That is not cruelty. That is care. Day, you might look back at the season and feel a gentle gratitude, not because it was easy, but because it was honest. You'll see how your decision to listen to your inner truth opened the door for new people to enter your life, people who meet you where you are, who listen when you speak, who care about your feelings without needing you to shrink them. You'll see how your willingness to release what no longer fit allowed you to build connections on a foundation of respect, reciprocity, and emotional safety. Until then, be kind to the part of you that is hurting. Give yourself permission to feel the ache without rushing to fix it. Let your heart mourn what's changing. Let your mind slowly unclench from the idea that you must hold everyone forever. Relationships are like seasons. Some last a lifetime, others are brief but meaningful. The fact that a season is ending doesn't erase the beauty of what it once was. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to choose peace. And you are allowed to walk forward, even if some people you love are not ready to walk with you. You're watching English Life Moments, small moments. Steady mind. Thank you for being here.